go ahead and talk about today's speakers. We have Jazmin Rojas. She is currently a student at UC Irvine, and she's also a OneFuture Coachella Valley Scholar. We also have Elizabeth Aguilar from Riverside University Health System, Kurt Madden from Cal State University San Bernardino, Jodie Capper from Coachella Valley High School Health Academy, and Ebony Staten from CaliforniaColleges.edu. So we'll get started with Jazmin. As I mentioned, she is currently a student at UC Irvine. She will be talking about communication and conflict resolution. And she's an amazing OneFuture scholar that we're very proud and happy to have here present to you.
Today I'm going to be starting off our first series with communication and conflict resolution. Who am I? My name is Jazmin Rojas, pronouns she, they. As Eloisa mentioned, I am a fourth year at UCI, studying psychological sciences with a minor in biological sciences. I graduated in June, so this is a really big accomplishment for myself, and also with the support of OneFuture Coachella Valley. You know, we've been able to do great things, and so here's my first step to coming back to the Valley and contributing back to the community that helped me. So before we get started, I just want to put a quick disclaimer that the information we offer is not therapy. And if you find yourself in a situation where you need help, please feel free to contact us, and we'll be more than happy to put you in contact with the services you might need and might benefit from. For all of my workshops, I like to set a couple of community agreements as a safe space to understand that here in this area, we respect others and their opinions. You know, we all come from very different locations, very different experiences, and those experiences, you know, shape our values and beliefs. And so those make us very special. And so whatever is said here stays here. So that's my Vegas rule. So whatever is said here stays here. Whatever is learned here leaves here. So this is a safe space to be vulnerable, being honest, you know, learning from each other, but at the same time, keep that information confidential in this room, and go ahead and spread out any information you find important out to those who need it. And lastly, be present. It's just being present, taking the information of what applies to you. If it doesn't, by all means, and if it does, please let us know. So for today, at the end of my 15 minutes, we are going to define communication, the importance of communication, what it is to be healthy and an effective communicator, and also how to use those communication mechanisms to efficiently solve conflict resolutions. You know, it's hard when there's a disagreement, and so it's even harder when it's just bickering back and forth. You get nowhere, right? And so hopefully you pick out any key takeaways, and you'll be able to apply this for you and yourself in the future. So quick icebreaker, a little self-reflection. You can either write, you can either text this, you can just think mentally, but reflect on how you communicate with people in your everyday life. This can be in a relationship, both platonic, academic, professional. And what does it mean to be a good communicator? So for me, I was a very extroverted person. The pandemic hit. All of a sudden, I'm very introverted. I have a social battery. I'm just like, does this really have to be a meeting? Like, it could really be an email, you know? And so now, like, unfortunately, but fortunately, you know, we're a year in. And so now I strive. I'm just like, hey, can you have a few minutes to Zoom? Like, you know, I kind of miss that social aspect. And so for me, it's kind of, it always changes. What does it mean to be a good communicator for you? And what is communication to you? That's one of the key takeaways that we hope once we are able to, you know, sit down, take a different perspective, we'll be able to listen to understand rather than to listen and you know, give that feedback in not an effective way. So definitions, what is communication? Communication is a process by which information is exchanged between individuals. It can either be through symbols, signs, or behavior. Green light, that means go. Red light, that means stop. Also an emoji, that's something like that's fairly common. And so, you know, like emojis are something that are often used in today's, you know, texting. And also behavior. Behavior, whether or not I'm making eye contact. If I'm on my phone, just, you know, giving this presentation, that's communicating a message. And so basically the point of communication is to say something. It can either be your favorite color, it can be how you're feeling, it can be you might be needing something. And so with conflict, something that's very essential is communication, right? Whenever you have a conflict, it's usually a disagreement. And it's typically a long disagreement. And with conflicts, we need to resolve. And so resolving is solving the issue that was presenting through effective communication. So here's an example. I'm discussing dinner plans. I communicate that I want pasta, but here's a conflict. My sister actually wants chicken. So what do? Rather than yelling, I want pasta, I want chicken, I want pasta, I want chicken. How about we do pasta this week and we do chicken next week, right? Simple as that. It's not always that simple, but fortunately, like, whenever you do have these effective coping mechanisms to communicate and being verbal about, how you feel and how the other person feels, there's always a nice thing about compromise. So types of communication. Communication is seen in a various amount of ways. It can be either oral, either a public speech, what I'm doing right now, through television, news, phone conversations, through text. Oral communication is a form of communication that happens through spoken words. Written communication. All of y'all are here because you saw the wonderful post that Eloisa made. You got that information. This is on conflict and resolution. And so basically it's any word, anything that's handwritten or typed. You get that from newspapers, Word documents, letters, and books. And nonverbal communication. Nonverbal communication is those symbols, those colors, gestures, body language. Body language is very important. You have that shaky knee. I can tell that you're nervous. You're communicating to me that you're nervous. Facial expressions as well. You're frowning, you're smiling, gasping, things of that nature. So really communication happens just by existing. One way or another, you're communicating some kind of message. So why is it important? It really affects our relationships with family, friends, and partners, our workspaces as well. It's important to be, working hand in hand with your coworkers, and also education. Whenever we're really confused in class, the teachers can see there's some kind of confusion, and then finally it clicks and you get that magical, oh. And also something that we tend to do within our relationships, not just romantic, but like, hey, how are you doing? I'm fine. Are you sure you're fine? Like, I'm fine, but you're actually not. And so that's ineffective communication, because you're saying you're fine, but now there's some kind of miscommunication that can potentially start conflict. And so it's really important in regards to arguments, proving a point. But there's different mechanisms to proving a point in a very healthy way. And also it promotes healthy and long-lasting relationships. If you're honest with folks and you're able to be an effective communicator, you tend to maintain those relationships. So as I mentioned, effective communication is the ability to convey information effectively and efficiently. A lot of methods to having good communication is being open-minded. Understand opinions aren't necessarily conflicts, nor disagreements. It's more of how one person stands. And also using a friendly tone and being respectful is very important, as well as knowing your audience. If I'm presenting to a bunch of fifth graders, there's no reason to be using scientific language that isn't going to be helpful, because the whole time they're going to be confused, right? So being empathetic is also very, very important when it comes to communication. You want to make sure that you understand the person. And if you don't understand, hopefully you're comfortable enough to say, hey, I don't quite understand you. Can you explain a little bit more? It helps you to describe how you're feeling. So rather than saying, I'm fine, just say, hey, I'm having a tough day. So if you see me, not really engaging in my typical behavior, now you know why. Healthy and unhealthy, once again, unhealthy ways of communication is just always being full of defensiveness. And also stonewalling. Stonewalling is like withdrawing from conversation and just saying, yes, I understand. But no, it's more of being engaged, actively listening, listening to understand rather than replying. And conflict resolution. So communication through conflicting beliefs, perspectives, thoughts, or goals. So here is a quote from Stephen Covey. The biggest communication problem is we do not listen to understand. We listen to reply. So that is the biggest theme of this presentation here. It's making sure you listen to understand, understand the message that's trying to be communicated to you. And there's always questions in between to make sure we're listening to understand rather than to reply. So when do conflicts occur? Conflicts usually occur whenever they're being disrupted, and differences in opinions, disagreements, and any scarcity of resources. So let's just say there's the last piece of bread you want, rather than splitting it in half, you're like, I'm gonna hog it. And so there's a conflict. Reminders that conflicts are bound to occur. We are unique in our experience, thoughts, and backgrounds. So just, utilizing all these tools of being empathetic, listening to understand, and not stonewalling, not disengaging, and nor being defensive, excuse me, will help you communicate and also solve those conflicts that you're bound to occur. Here's a quick little IBR approach. It's basically listen first, talk second, identify the facts together, separate people from problems, try understanding the other person's point of view, explore options together, and nurture good relationships. You're able to, let's just say you get angry, let's go ahead and look up some anger management techniques, being emotionally intelligent, and understanding body language. So here's a scenario I would like to leave y'all to think about with information we just went over. So your friend texts you after 2 weeks of leaving you on red. You're hurt because there was no reason why they stopped texting you. Even though you really miss them, you decide to ignore them back. After 2 days, your friend is now hurt because you haven't responded. What would you do? And so personally, for me, I tend to step back in the situation and I look at two friends who are refusing to talk to each other. Now they're both hurt, they both miss each other. And because, you know, we kind of have that defensiveness of, oh, they didn't text me, so now I'm not gonna text them. And so now we have a friend like, hey, I'm kind of hurt because you didn't text me. But now that pride that you tend to have within that conflict is letting you it's not letting you communicate effectively, rather than, hey, I was kind of hurt you didn't text me without a reason. What's going on? What if they had lost their phone? And because of that pride of not wanting to text them back, now they'll never know. And so communication gets in the way of a lot of things. And so sometimes it just takes getting the proper resources and the proper techniques to keep those healthy and long-lasting relationships. So thank you. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce the panelists that Eloisa mentioned previously. We have Elizabeth Aguilar, Jodie Capper, and Kurt Manio.
I'm Elizabeth. What I do is I work over at the county for Riverside University Health System slash behavioral health, also AKA the county mental health system. My position specifically, because since I'm a senior mental health family advocate, since I'm a senior, I'm a regional family advocate, which means that I cover the clinics from Banning to Blythe. And the individual doesn't necessarily have to receive mental health treatment, or the family member doesn't have to have their loved one have received mental health treatment to meet with me and to explore what options are available for their loved one in order for them to be able to move towards recovery, or to start services in our system, or even if they want to do private care as well. A typical day for me is, since I'm the senior, I have other people that I mentor. I'm not their supervisor, but I do, on a consistent basis, connect with the peers that work in the different clinics, and we explore how things are going, what are the opportunities that are available in order to get them the support that they need, as well as the support that the family may need so that they're able to help their loved one along with the process. The skills that you need, I really believe that, good listening skills are key, as well as being able to provide the support, and having good people skills goes a long ways. Just being there for people, especially when they're in crisis, or they're overwhelmed, or they want to know more information about something, because they've already made so many phone calls. I mean, usually over 10, and then they finally have someone that can help them answer those questions, like about confidentiality and how to provide the resources and the information to the doctor in regards to their loved one that's getting mental health treatment services in an outpatient or an inpatient clinic. For my position, I thought it was really funny when I went to apply for this position 12 years ago, because they were not looking for me to have a degree, and they wanted me to know what the resources were that what was more important to them was that I have a family member that has a mental health diagnosis, somebody that I've caregiven for, and I do. I'm very explicit. My family member is my mom, and we've learned a lot from her, and she's in a really good space right now. So I think it's important that families understand that that recovery is possible. And that's the reason why they have people, family advocates like myself, in that type of role. As of now, there isn't a certificate that we need. There are other states like Georgia, I believe is one of the more popular one that has a certificate, whether it's for family advocate or for peer specialist. So right now, what they're trying to do is grandfather us in, because as of January 2022, they do want us to have a certificate, and they want a certain amount of hours, training, as well as education that backs up what we're doing. My education, I do have a bachelor's in psychology from Cal State Los Angeles, and I'm actually glad that I was there because I worked on campus in the office for students with disabilities. So I got to see everyone from a different level and learned about disabilities and treat everyone exactly, for the person they are, not for their disability. Um, I have had other jobs in social work and behavioral health. I was an assistant social worker at a place called an adult day healthcare center. It was kind of like a facility where they're able to provide, like physical health checkups and activities. There's not a lot of them in the state. A lot of them have been closed. So, but it was a really great experience because I was able to work with people with schizophrenia, older adults, people with dementia, different, everything you can imagine. What I love the most about my job is that I get to pay it forward. My sister went to a meeting not too long ago, maybe last year, like in May, and she's like, "How can you do this? This is horrible. It's so sad." And I said, "You have to remember that now I get to pay forward whatever was given to us when we needed the support that we did with my mom." So that for me is key. I guess the challenges associated with my job career is that there's not a lot of positions where you can move up. If I want to, if I let's there was one big position that where someone recently got hired, but those don't come up frequently. So if I wanted to, let's say, become a therapist, then I would have to go back for my master's.
My name is Manio, and I'm a social worker. This past January marked my 15th year as a social worker. So before I talk to you specifically about my career, I just want to share in general for anyone that doesn't know what a social worker does. I mean, we're all over the place. We work in child welfare, but we're also in schools. We work in law enforcement agencies, hospitals, colleges, behavioral health, all over the place. But in general, what we do is we meet with families. They're referred to as to address an identified need or a problem, right? So we meet with the family to assess their needs, also assess their strengths, and we use those strengths to help them address those identified needs or the identified problem, and we fill in any gaps of any services available in the community. So that's just in general about what social workers do. For me specifically, I graduated from UCR with a bachelor's in psychology. I started working for Riverside County. I guess Elizabeth likes to call it the county. So I worked there too in Riverside Social Services. So I worked in child welfare. So I said 15 years, right? So the first 11 years of my social work career, I was working for child welfare, where my primary role was investigating child abuse or neglect. So I said families that would get referred to us for an identified problem or need, right? So in the context of child welfare, the problem or need that we'd be addressing is concerns that the children at home weren't being, that they were being abused or neglected, right? So I did that for a really long time. I loved working with the families. I moved my way up into management. I became a supervisor. I also did some program and policy development. I did some training as well. I eventually went to Cal State San Bernardino to get my master's in social work. And a couple of years after I graduated, I left the county, sadly. I was sad to leave, but I was really hopeful for the opportunity I was given to run a program called First Star Academy at Cal State San Bernardino. So out of the context of child welfare, I moved into the context of education, where the problem or need I was addressing was the educational outcomes for our youth in foster care. You could do a quick search if you don't know, but the educational outcomes are really bad. And the early adulthood outcomes are probably even worse. So what I do now as a director of First Star Academy, in short, it is a pre-college program that provides academic support specifically for youth in foster care. So the goal is I work with them, the students from 9th grade up until they ideally graduate as seniors. And during that time, I'm providing them with academic support, workshops, tutoring, and also workshops for social emotional learning, college preparation, and also just, we like to call it adulting 101, just skills that you're gonna need to survive, even if you're not in post-secondary education, right? So what that looks like on a day-to-day is I meet with students and families all the time on a regular basis, just to make sure that they're keeping up on their grades, giving them the resources that they need to make sure that they're keeping their grades up, and also advocating for them to make sure that their IEP is on point, their needs are being met by the school, and to make sure that they're being enrolled in the right classes for their track, right? And then also partnering with other agencies in the community to help provide these students with the services they need to help them be successful, not only in high school, but ideally in college and early adulthood as well. So that's what I do. I love being a social worker. There are many things to do. I also teach part-time in the School of Social Work here on campus, and I love doing that as well. I guess what I love most about it, I think Elizabeth just kind of wrapped it up. You kind of give forward, you pay it forward. I like the opportunity to help people. I love working with youth in foster care. I think they're a very underrepresented population, and they definitely need our support.
Hi there, I'm Jodie Capper. I'm a registered nurse and I'm a teacher in the Health Academy at Coachella Valley High School. So I have kind of two pathways that I can give you some insight into. You can enter mental health services and things like that as a registered nurse. You can go and work in a clinical setting with people who need mental health support at a different kind of a level, in a clinical level. I did do clinicals in a psychiatric unit when I was doing my clinicals. Very much enjoyed it. Ended up going a different path when I ended up graduating and taking my thing. But the psychiatric pathway was really amazing and interesting. I really enjoyed it. I have a lot of great memories about it. So you can always go that way if you're, thinking that you want to help people. If nursing sounds familiar, but so does mental health. That pathway right there checks 2 boxes for you. The other thing that I ended up doing was, I'm still an RN. I will probably hold that license until the day I die because, oh my gosh, I work so hard for that. But I went back, I decided to go back and get another degree in child development because I knew I wanted to be a teacher. A lot of the time I spend in nursing is spent teaching people about their health. And so I thought, what a great transition. I'll go get a degree in child development and I will teach kids. And then I went and got a job at Coachella Valley High School. I thought I was going to teach elementary school. And then it's the greatest thing. It's the greatest job I've ever had. I love my job so much. The best part of my day is working with advancing knowledge about mental health and what it is and those kinds of services. I've got this army of students who are helping to reduce stigma around it, who are spreading the word to talk about your emotions and your feelings and that it's fine. And so like everybody else who's talked, one of the greatest things that I get from my profession is this ability to connect with people. I'm good at it and I love doing it. And I love that I can connect with my students, develop a safe space, and create this group of people who want to go out and help people. As a nurse, it's one of my, it's one of the oaths that we take to bring up the generation below us. But as an educator, I really walk the walk on that one. So those are 2 ways that I get in, that I can do things to further our mental health awareness, reducing the stigma, raising awareness, all of those kinds of things through the 2 different pathways of what I've done. My day-to-day that looks like right now is Zoom, like everybody else is. But normally I'm with all of my students. We have awareness campaigns. We talk, we have these amazing discussions. We learn about, mental health issues and have open, really frank, really amazing discussions. And then they take all of that information out and start conversations with their peers to just raise awareness and all of that kind of good stuff.
Hello, everyone. So I'm just going to give you a quick little overview. And so in the midst of our quick little overview, what you see in front of you is CaliforniaColleges.edu. So CaliforniaColleges.edu is a tool that Palm Springs Unified, Desert Sands, and Coachella Valley Unified are all using on campus. So if you are a member or a student at any of those, in any of those districts, you likely have heard of this already. If you are not in any of those school districts, you still have access to this tool. And the reason for us talking about it is to allow you some additional exploration after today's conversation. So number one, I'm at CaliforniaColleges.edu. Top right-hand corner, I clicked sign in. I'm using just a sample student account, but if you are a parent by chance and you would like to have your account connected with your student, you can click on register and you can identify yourself as a parent. And if you are a student, you already know what your login information is. And if not, you'll want to check with your counselor to let you know either one, what your username is, or also to help you with resetting your password if you didn't want to just click the link for forgot password. So we're going to sign in. And Kurt, we're going to use your example today. And with using your example, you can see that my sample student here is in the 10th grade. However, as a 10th grader, I heard about social work during a presentation on Tuesday night, and I want to explore a little bit more. So now I'm going to hover over career here at the top. I'm going to go to the career search tool. And, you know, I just don't really remember all that he said, but I just want a little bit more information. So I'm typing in social work. I'm going to click in search. Now, when I click on search, now I can see that there are 784 careers related to social work. So I could either look specifically for the social work that Kurt told me about, or I could also look to find out, wait, I could be a teacher like Kurt talked about also. And so with that, I could say, you know what? I really like that one. I'm gonna pick me some of that one, and I can save these for later and come back to them later, okay? So if I wanna go into social work, I have the opportunity now to click on the link. And as I click on the link, I have an idea of what the responsibilities are for that particular career. There is a brief video as to what it looks like. So now when Kurt was talking about the needs of the family, now I get a video, I have a chance to see what that looks like. And I could also kind of read through those work activities. What could I expect in that role? But now I also have the ability to look at some of the academic knowledge that would be needed for that particular career. So I know that psychology might be something I'll learn a little bit more about, but also having some understanding around therapy and counseling, and even clerical skills and understanding how to connect people with those resources that Kurt shared with us. But this also gives me an opportunity to look at all of the different aspects of social work. One, we can look at salary and potential growth. We can look at the colleges that offer social work as a major. And if I were going to do that, I could also I could search specifically for majors on those college campuses. I also have the ability, we're going to go right back to what we heard earlier and those listening skills. So I know that that is extremely important in tying it all together. So in this space, with everyone who's on this call, just know that yes, you heard a wealth of information, but the information doesn't have to stop with this conversation. We encourage you to go to CaliforniaColleges.edu. Feel free to sign in, but even if you didn't sign in, you can still search through this tool the exact same way. The only difference is you won't be able to save the information. So if you sign in, you can save it. If you're not signed in, that's just going to be for you to explore during that moment. If you want to explore further for you eager beavers, you can click on View Colleges and you'll have the opportunity to see which colleges offer a degree related to social work.